In this video, we will explore everyone who was executed in the month of March. We will look into their crimes, their last words, and the final meals they requested before facing their fate. Brad Keith Sigmund, State, South Carolina. In 2001, 43-year-old Sigmund beat his ex-girlfriend's parents, David and Gladys Lark, to death with a baseball bat in their northwestern South Carolina home. After killing the couple, he kidnapped his ex-girlfriend Rebecca in his car. She managed to escape by jumping out of the moving vehicle, though Sigmund shot her once in the foot before his gun ran out of bullets. Sigmund later confessed to the murders. At his 2002 trial, he explained that when Rebecca fell out of love with him, it set him off. "I was obsessed with her," he told jurors. "Did I love her more than anything else in the world?" The day before his execution, Sigmund was offered a last meal. He requested fried chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes with gravy, biscuits, cheesecake, and sweet tea. His attorney noted that Sigmund had also requested 3 buckets of original recipe Kentucky Fried Chicken to feed the men locked up with him, but this request was denied. On March 7, 2025, 67-year-old Brad Keith Sigmund was executed by firing squad in South Carolina, making it the first such execution in the state in modern history and the first in the U.S. since 2010. He was pronounced dead at 6:08 p.m. When asked for his last words, Sigmund said, "I want my closing statement to be one of love and a calling to my fellow Christians to help us end the death penalty. An eye for an eye was used as justification to the jury for seeking the death penalty. At that time, I was too ignorant to know how wrong that was. Why? Because we no longer live under the Old Testament law, but now live under the New Testament." Jesse Hoffman, State, Louisiana. On November 27, 1996, 18-year-old Hoffman, who had worked for about 2 weeks as a parking attendant at the Sheraton Hotel garage in New Orleans, kidnapped 28-year-old advertising executive Molly Elliott at gunpoint as she walked to her car. She was supposed to meet her husband at his office at 6 p.m. for dinner. Hoffman forced Molly to withdraw about $200 from an ATM before making her drive to a remote area of St. Tammany Parish while she begged him not to hurt her. As she pleaded for her life, he sexually assaulted her and then forced her to walk down a dirt path to a small, makeshift dock, where he put a gun to her head and pulled the trigger, ending her life. Her body was left on the cold dock, where she likely survived for a few minutes after being shot. The next morning, Thanksgiving Day, a duck hunter discovered her body at 7:45 a.m. Her husband later identified her, having reported her missing the previous evening when she failed to meet him for dinner after work. That same evening, a couple in New Orleans East found clothing and other items belonging to the victim in a vacant lot and turned them over to the police. Among the items found were 3 ATM receipts, which the police traced to a Regions Bank in eastern New Orleans. Time-lapse videotaped footage of the ATM area recorded the victim withdrawing money while standing next to an African-American male wearing a jacket with the word "valet" on it. Investigating officers from St. Tammany Parish and Orleans Parish went to the Sheraton parking garage where the victim routinely parked her car. The employees of this parking garage wore jackets similar to the one seen in the ATM video. According to the parking garage managers, Hoffman was on break during the time period under investigation. The police arrested Hoffman and took him to headquarters for questioning. He initially claimed that 2 African-American males forced him into their car. Upon entering the car, he noticed a white female in the back with a towel over her head. The men drove them to an ATM and forced the woman to withdraw money while the defendant stood next to her. After driving a long distance, the men stopped the car near a bridge and told the defendant to sleep with her, or they would kill him and his girlfriend, Roshana. He later changed his story multiple times before finally admitting in a videotaped statement that he had kidnapped, robbed, assaulted, and shot the victim during what he claimed was a struggle over the gun. Hoffman was convicted of the assault and murder and sentenced to death. He declined a last meal before his execution. On March 17, 2025, Hoffman was executed by nitrogen gas, becoming the first inmate in Louisiana history and only the fifth in the U.S. to die by this controversial method. Hoffman's own attorney called the execution senseless and stated, "We are better than this." He was a father, a husband, and a man who showed extraordinary capacity for redemption. He added, Jesse no longer bore any resemblance to the 18-year-old who killed Molly Elliott. Meanwhile, the gas flowed for about 19 minutes, 5 minutes after state officials say he flatlined. Hoffman did not offer any last words. Aaron Gunches, State, Arizona. On November 14, 2002, 30-year-old Gunches became involved in a situation with his girlfriend and her ex-husband, Ted Price. After Price and his ex-girlfriend had a heated argument that ended with her hitting him with a telephone, Gunches arrived at the apartment later that evening. He directed the woman's roommates to put Price and his belongings in her car, supposedly to take him to a bus station. When Gunches didn't have money for a bus ticket, he and one of the roommates drove Price to a desolate desert area outside of Mesa. There, Gunches and Price exited the vehicle, and Gunches fired multiple shots, taking Price's life. Gunches and the roommate returned to Mesa, stopping once to dispose of Price's belongings in a dumpster. Price's body was discovered days later. On January 15, 2003, Gunches was arrested in La Paz County after shooting an Arizona Department of Public Safety officer during a traffic stop. The officer survived, but Gunches fled, leading to a 15-hour multi-agency search before his capture. During his sentencing, Gunches told jurors, "Do what you're going to do." The day before his execution, Gunches was offered a last meal. He requested a bacon cheeseburger, gyro, onion rings, and baklava. On March 18, 2025, Aaron Gunches, 53, was executed by lethal injection at a state prison in Florence, Arizona. When asked if he had any last words, Gunches shook his head to say no. After the drugs began to flow, he breathed heavily several times before losing consciousness. He was declared dead at 10:33 a.m. local time. Wendell Arden Grissom, State, Oklahoma. On November 3, 2005, 36-year-old Grissom, a former long-haul truck driver, and Jesse Johns, a homeless hitchhiker he had picked up the day before, drove into Blaine County, Oklahoma, looking for a house to burglarize. After drinking vodka, Grissom chose a house at random. When Drew Kopp answered the door, Grissom first asked if her husband was home. He then shot his way through a sliding glass door into the house. Kopp fought him and was shot multiple times in the wrist, hand, shoulder, head, and hip. Amber Dawn Matthews, only 23, grabbed Kopp's 5-week-old daughter and ran into a bedroom where Kopp's 19-month-old daughter was sleeping. Grissom followed Amber into the room where she pleaded, "Please don't shoot me," before he fired at her, taking her life as she cradled one of the children. Kopp managed to escape in Grissom's truck and flagged down another vehicle for assistance. Grissom fled using Kopp's husband's four-wheeler. He and Johns were apprehended that same day at a nearby cafe after locals reported seeing them. Grissom had a history of incarceration, having been locked up for most of his adult life with 2 prior prison sentences in Texas for burglaries. He had moved back to Arkansas after being paroled in 2001 and had become a long-haul trucker. The day before his execution, Grissom was offered a last meal. He requested a Canadian bacon supreme pizza, a pint of vanilla ice cream, and a pint of Coca-Cola. On March 20th, 2025, 56-year-old Wendell Arden Grissom was executed by lethal injection at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. "I consider this a mercy. It's going to be all right," he said in his last words after apologizing and asking for forgiveness from all of you that I hurt. He was pronounced dead at 10:13 a.m. local time. Edward Thomas James, State, Florida. On September 20th, 1993, 28-year-old James, who had been renting a room in Betty Dick's home in Florida for about 6 months and had known the family for years, committed a horrific crime. While drunk and high on crack, James attacked 8-year-old Toni Neuner, who was sleeping in the home with her 3 siblings, aged 2 to 10. He assaulted and took the life of the child before hiding her body behind his bed. According to his confession, James then thought, "Eddie, this ain't no fun. I'll get me a grown woman." He proceeded to Dick's bedroom, where he severely attacked her and inflicted multiple stab wounds. He then fled the state with her purse, jewelry, and car, setting off a frantic manhunt. James was recognized on the America's Most Wanted television show and captured in California following a 17-day manhunt. He confessed to the crimes upon his arrest and has always acknowledged his guilt. In 2003, he stated in court, "I don't want to die, but I do believe it's the proper penalty for what I committed. From now until the time they execute me, I'm just going to exist, come as close to peace with what I did. I feel in my heart that I'm doing the right thing." On March 28, 2025, Edward Thomas James was executed by lethal injection at the Florida State Prison in Rayford. He was pronounced dead just after 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Christopher Sepulvado, State, Louisiana. In 1990, Sepulvado began dating Yvonne Mercer, who was separated from her husband. In January 1991, Yvonne and her 4-year-old son Wesley moved in with Sepulvado. He soon began drinking heavily and abusing Yvonne, who left him several times. When she finally returned with Wesley, Sepulvado started abusing the boy instead of her. On March 5, 1992, Sepulvado married Wesley's mother. The day after, Wesley came home from school having soiled his pants 3 times. His mother denied him dinner and spanked him. Sepulvado went further. He tied a noose to a ceiling fan and threatened to hang Wesley, made him stand on a chair on one foot, whipped him with a belt, and shoved his head into a toilet. On March 7th, Sepulvado ordered that Wesley be starved for another day, and the boy was hit by his mother and made to sleep on a small trunk. On March 8, 1992, Sepulvado kicked Wesley into the bathroom and threatened to burn him with hot water if he soiled his pants again. When the boy was slow to get ready for church, Sepulvado subjected Wesley to severe physical abuse. He then put the unconscious child into a bathtub of scalding hot water. Later, Wesley was allowed to eat, but vomited, collapsed, and lost consciousness. 3 hours after that, the couple took him to the hospital, where the 6-year-old died shortly after 2 p.m. An autopsy showed Wesley died from heart and lung failure caused by severe burns covering 58% of his body. He also had multiple head wounds. Sepulvado was sentenced to death for the murder. He was set to be executed in 2013, but his lawyer successfully argued that Louisiana officials weren't providing enough information about the execution drugs. On February 11, 2025, a judge set Sepulvado's execution for March 17, 2025. However, the 81-year-old Sepulvado died of natural causes at Louisiana State Penitentiary, just days after his execution date was set.